In the last few weeks, 3 things happened that were not supposed to happen. Microsoft cut its own engineers off from the best AI coding tool they'd ever been given, a tool so popular inside the company that the bill became the problem. Uber admitted that its entire 2026 budget for AI tools was gone in 4 months. And Meta, the company that spent the last 2 years buying every graphics chip on Earth, quietly started trying to sell its spare AI computing power to other companies. Now you've been told the AI bubble will pop when people stop believing in AI. That's not how bubbles die. Belief is free. Bubbles die when somebody finally has to pay. And by the end of this video, you'll see the one piece of arithmetic every AI lab is hoping you never do, because it says exactly who that somebody is. This is the AI Files, and this episode is a money trail. I'm going to show you the real documents, what Microsoft actually did in its own words. The numbers Uber's own executives put on the record. A diagram of where the money actually goes when an AI company raises $100 billion. You'll want to screenshot that one. And the 4-week stretch in which the biggest names in tech all reached for your wallet at the same time. No doom, no hype, the channel rule is receipts. And the question we're chasing is simple. If AI is the future, why are the richest companies in history suddenly refusing to pay for their own? Start with Microsoft because it's the cleanest version of the story. In December 2025, Microsoft gave its engineers access to Claude Code, Anthropic's coding agent, and by most accounts the strongest one on the market. It spread through the company like wildfire. Too well, in fact, because in May, The Verge reported that Microsoft was cancelling most of that access, pushing engineers onto its own, cheaper tool, GitHub Copilot, with a switch-off landing on June 30th. The cuts hit the division that builds Windows, Office, Outlook, and Teams the hardest. Think about what that means. The tool wasn't failing. It was so good that thousands of engineers leaned on it every day, and every day the meter ran. The better it got, the bigger the bill got. Now here's the detail that makes this interesting, and it's the detail most coverage skipped. Microsoft did not touch its $5 billion investment in Anthropic, or the deal where Anthropic spends $30 billion running on Microsoft's cloud. Those stayed, so Microsoft still believes in AI. It still wants the winnings. It just doesn't want to be the one paying the running costs. Hold that thought, because that exact move is about to show up everywhere. Now Uber, late 2025, Uber rolls AI coding tools out to about 5,000 engineers, and management didn't just allow it, they gamified it. Leaderboards, team rankings, use more AI, and the engineers did. In December, about a third of them were using it. By February, 63%. By March, 84%, and then the money ran out. Uber's chief technology officer, Praveen Napali-Nagar, admitted the company had burned through its entire 2026 AI tools budget in about 4 months. A year of money gone by spring. His own words for the spending figures? Head exploding. And this is a man who personally torched $1,200 of AI usage in a single 2-hour demo. Uber's response was not to unplug the AI. It works. Their CEO says roughly 10% of their back-end code updates are now AI written. The response was spending caps, $1,500 per engineer per month. And look, I can vouch for this one personally. This channel is produced with AI agents every single day. That's my real usage bill on screen right now, 9 billion tokens. The meter is real. When you hand an AI a goal instead of a question, the cost stops being a rounding error, which raises the obvious question, why is this happening at all? Why does the magic replacement worker keep bankrupting its own budget line? Because for 2 years, spending on AI wasn't a cost. It was a status symbol. At Amazon, Fortune reported staff pushing each other to Tokenmaxx, slang for burning as many AI tokens as possible. At Meta, an employee built an internal leaderboard called Claudeonomics, ranking colleagues by how much they spent on AI. Read that again. Not what they built with it, what they spent on it. The engineer with the biggest bill didn't look wasteful. He looked like the future. It's a textbook tragedy of the commons. Each individual prompt costs a fraction of a cent, so nobody hesitates. Multiply by thousands of engineers, millions of tasks, every day. And you get a number nobody can defend in a budget meeting. Meta has since killed that leaderboard and replaced it with a system that tracks whether the spend is actually worth it. 2024 was use more AI. 2026 is justify the bill. And here's the reframe that makes sense of all of it. Microsoft didn't cut Claude Code because it failed. It cut it because it was too good. A chat prompt is one neat exchange. You ask, it answers, the meter clicks once. An agent is a different animal. You give it a goal, and it works. Reads your code, drafts a plan, writes changes, runs the tests, hits a failure, rethinks, tries again, and every single step bills you. Gartner puts a typical agent task at 5 to 30 times the tokens of a simple exchange. Researchers at Stanford and Microsoft measured worst cases spiking past 1,000 times. And the expensive part isn't even the work that lands, it's the retries. The failures bill you at full price too. So the smarter and more autonomous the system gets, the more it costs to run. Capability and cost aren't separate dials, no, they're the same dial. Which closes one mystery. This was never about losing faith in AI, and opens the real one. If the companies building this stuff won't carry the running costs, who exactly is supposed to? In April, Brian Catanzaro, a vice president at NVIDIA, the company selling the shovels, the last person on Earth with an incentive to say this, told Axios that the cost of compute for his team is, quote, far beyond the cost of the employees. Sit with that. Inside the very companies building AI, the machine is no longer the cheap part. The people are. For 70 years, computing has moved in exactly one direction. The machine gets cheaper than the human. That's why we automate. Somewhere in the last 2 years at the frontier, that line quietly flipped. And a $1,500 a month cap per engineer, that's not a tool budget anymore. In most of the world, that's a salary. Now, the obvious objection and Microsoft's actual plan: make the tokens cheaper. Microsoft built its own chip, the Maya 200, and Satya Nadella told investors it squeezes out 30% more AI work per dollar than the older hardware in its racks. That's real progress. Here's the uncomfortable part: it doesn't fix this. Gartner forecasts that running a top AI model in 2030 could cost 90% less than it did in 2025. And, in the same breath, that companies' AI bills will still go up. Because every time a token gets cheaper, we hand the agents bigger jobs, longer loops, more autonomy, and total usage grows faster than the price falls. Economists have a name for this. It's Jevons' paradox, and it's been happening since coal. Cheaper compute doesn't shrink the bill, it grows the appetite. The cheap thing and the powerful thing are different products, and the powerful thing stays expensive. And the wild thing is, the industry has known this math from the start. Back in 2023, Microsoft sold GitHub Copilot for $10 a month. The Wall Street Journal reported that the average user was costing Microsoft more than $20 a month to serve, and the heaviest users up to $80, $10 in, $80 out, selling $20 bills for $10 and promising to make it up on volume. That was the warning shot 3 years ago on the simplest AI product there is. Agents just took that leaky bucket and drilled the hole wider. So zoom all the way out and put two numbers on one card. Add up what the two flagship AI labs, OpenAI and Anthropic, actually bring in, and the industry's loudest skeptic, Ed Zitron, tallies it at roughly $61 billion a year, built from reported figures. The amount the big cloud companies are spending on data centers and chips across 2025 and 26? More than $1 trillion, and that one isn't from a skeptic, it's from the Bank for International Settlements. Those two numbers have to meet one day. Right now, they're not even in the same universe. And a third number explains why. MIT researchers found that around 95% of corporate AI pilot projects deliver no measurable return. OpenAI reportedly lost nearly $21 billion last year on $13 billion in revenue, and its own projections have it burning through more than $100 billion cumulatively before the end of the decade. Now the honest other side, because this channel does both sides, the revenue is real and it is growing brutally fast. Anthropic's run rate crossed $47 billion, and it projects its first ever operating profit this quarter. The technology earns. The question was never whether AI makes money, it's whether it makes money faster than it burns it, and who's covering the difference in the meantime. Which brings us to the diagram I promised you. Follow the money. Actually follow it. NVIDIA put roughly $30 billion into OpenAI's latest funding round. OpenAI spends that money on Nvidia chips. Microsoft and Nvidia together put $15 billion into Anthropic, and Anthropic committed $30 billion to run on Microsoft's cloud, which runs on Nvidia chips. Oracle signs a mega deal to build data centers for OpenAI. OpenAI's spending commitments justify Oracle's build-out. Nvidia even backstops the leases of CoreWeave, a cloud company whose main asset is Nvidia chips. Bloomberg tallied more than $800 billion of these vendor financing loops. Now, this can be legitimate. Vendor financing built the railroads. But notice what it does to the scoreboard. When the same dollars go in a circle, everyone on the circle books growth, and no new money has entered the system. The revenue is real on paper and circular in the plumbing. Money moving in a circle is not proof the product works. It's the tell that everyone needs the number to keep going up. And a circle has one weakness. It only takes one company deciding to step out. Which brings us to last week, the reason this video exists. On July 1st, Meta announced something that sounds boring and isn't: Meta Compute. Meta, the company that spent 2 years in a chip-buying arms race, will now sell its spare AI computing power to other companies. Wall Street loved it. The stock jumped 9%. But stop and ask the only question that matters. Why does Meta have spare AI computing power? You don't sell your surplus unless you have a surplus. Mark Zuckerberg said it out loud months ago. If we get to a point where we feel that we have overbuilt, then that is an option that we have. Bank of America did the brutal math on what that surplus is worth. A gigawatt of AI data center costs $40 to $45 billion to build, and rents out for maybe $10 to $15 billion a year. And here's where the circle snaps into focus. The moment Meta became a seller of compute, the middlemen who exist to rent out compute crashed. CoreWeave Digital, which has a $21 billion deal with Meta, fell over 15% in a day. Nibius, 17. Their biggest customer just became their competitor. That's what a crack looks like. Not a crash, a crack. The first company on the circle quietly testing the exit. And once you see it everywhere. Analysts at TD Cowen tracked Microsoft walking away from roughly 2 gigawatts of data center leases, capacity it had claimed, then quietly let go. I'll be fair, the research firm SemiAnalysis pushed back hard on the internet's favorite version of that story. The half of all capacity cancelled rumor is overstated. But the direction isn't in dispute, and then there's the quote of the month. Alex Karp, the CEO of Palantir, a man whose entire fortune is AI software, on CNBC, July 1st, something has gone completely wrong with how AI is sold. He called the way the labs are charged for tokens a wealth tax on corporate America. His exact words about the bills: "That is effing insane." When the loudest AI bull on television starts sounding like the skeptics, the argument isn't bulls versus bears anymore. It's the people paying the bill versus the people sending it. Even the ghosts of 2008 are back. Michael Burry, the Big Short investor, spent June expanding bets against Nvidia, Tesla, and the chip index, warning of a gap between spending and revenue, quote, "not seen since the dot-com era." His line about Nvidia: "Every bubble has a Cisco, and its name is Nvidia." Now the honest caveat. Those are options positions. The headline numbers are notional, and Burry has been early, sometimes very early, before. He's not a prophet, he's a weather vane, but the wind he's pointing into is the same one we've been tracking for 15 minutes. Which brings us to the question this whole video has been circling. If big tech won't carry the cost and the circle can't create new money, who pays? In June we got the answer. In writing. June 1st, Anthropic confidentially files to go public. June 2nd, Alphabet, one of the most profitable companies in the history of money, announces it's raising nearly $85 billion, largely for AI infrastructure. June 8th, OpenAI, last valued at $852 billion, files for its own public offering. June 12th, SpaceX, now merged with xAI, so yes, an AI company, goes public and raises $75 billion, the largest IPO ever recorded. Add it up, and the AI industry is asking public markets for hundreds of billions of dollars of new money, into a market where the biggest IPO year in American history, 2021, raised about $135 billion total, and new money is the key phrase. Day to day, a stock price is just the last trade repricing everyone's shares. Belief, mark to market. An IPO is different. Real cash has to come off the sideline, dollar for dollar. For 3 years, the AI trade has run on belief. This is the moment belief gets asked to write a check. And inside that flood of filings, notice the sharpest move of all. Google didn't need to go first. It went first on purpose. Investor cash for AI is a finite pool. Whoever asks first gets it. If you buy Google, you get AI exposure plus search, plus YouTube, plus a company that's been profitable for 20 years. If AI disappoints, you still own Google. Every one of those $85 billion Google absorbs is a dollar that can't go to OpenAI, or Anthropic, or SpaceX. That's not a company that's scared of AI. That's a company making sure that if the music slows down, it's already sitting in a chair. So does the bubble pop. Here's the most useful thing history says. Probably, and it won't mean what the doomers think. In 1999, the internet was real. It changed everything, exactly like they said. The Nasdaq still fell 78%. Cisco, the Nvidia of its day, briefly the most valuable company on earth, fell 89% and has never seen its old peak since. Amazon fell 94% and became one of the most valuable companies in history anyway. And the telecom companies buried so much fiber optic cable that by 2002, roughly 95% of it sat dark, unused. Sound familiar? Here's the twist, that dark fiber didn't stay dark. It became dirt cheap capacity, and it's a real part of why streaming, YouTube, this very video became possible. The technology was never the lie. The prices were. Overinvestment ends careers and vaporizes portfolios. And then the infrastructure it leaves behind powers the real revolution, at a fraction of the cost, run by whoever buys it at the bottom. Which brings us to the arithmetic I promised, the one the labs would rather you never do. It fits on one chart. As a human gets better at their job, their cost stays, roughly flat. That's just a salary. As an AI agent gets better, more autonomous, more capable, longer running, its cost curves up because capability is consumption. More reasoning, more retries, more tokens. Every event in this video is that gap out in the wild. Microsoft cutting licenses, Uber's caps, Meta selling its surplus. Every hardware improvement, every new chip bends the curve down, and Jevons drags it right back up. So the story you were sold, that you're the expensive liability and the AI is the cheap replacement, inverts. At the frontier in 2026, you are the budget option. The cheapest reliable general intelligence on the market runs on a sandwich and a night's sleep. That's not an insult. That's leverage, and companies are quietly rebuilding around it. Duolingo walked back AI first. Even Jensen Huang's favorite line has a tell in it. 100 AI agents working alongside every employee. Alongside. Someone has to check the machine's work and kill the loop when it runs away. The most valuable seat in the room is turning out to be the person the spreadsheet couldn't replace. So what do you do with this? I'm not a financial advisor, and this isn't advice, but you can watch the same 3 tells I will. 1. Surplus. When the builders start reselling capacity, like Meta just did, supply has outrun real demand. 2. Circles. When the same dollars keep passing between vendor and customer, growth is being manufactured, not earned. 3. Cash calls. Watch what happens to these IPOs. If they price strong and hold, belief has cash behind it, and this runs longer than anyone expects. If they wobble, that's the confidence failing to convert, and that is historically how the air comes out. And if you work for a living, the arithmetic that protects your job is the same one bankrupting the budgets. Be the person who can do the work without the machine, and therefore catches the machine when it's confidently wrong. That skill is about to be priced like the scarce thing it is. The AI bubble won't be ended by doubt. Doubt is free, and the market has ignored it for 3 years. It'll be ended, or vindicated, by an invoice. The bill has been printed. The envelopes went out in June, and the smartest thing you can be, when it lands, is the one thing the machines still can't afford to replace. If you made it here, welcome. This is the AI Files, where every episode opens up what the AI industry would rather keep in the drawer, with receipts you can check yourself. Every source in this video is linked in the description. If that's your kind of thing, subscribe. The next file digs into the data centers themselves, the empty buildings, the power deals, and what actually happens to $1 billion of chips when the music stops. While you wait, the last file, where I made AI do 7 real jobs and it nearly bankrupted a fictional company with 1 contract, is right there on screen. It's the other half of this story. And if you want the 1-page bubble receipts sheet, every number, every source, every tell from this video, comment the word bill and I'll get it to you. Until the next file, watch the money, not the demos.